Good morning, everybody. This is our astrology weather forecast for the 4th of November, 2025. And we have got the moon in Taurus today. So, undercurrent of lingering. Oh, is that helpful? Because the overcurrent is quite explosive, electric, and can bring very unexpected things. We have Mars coming into Sagittarius today, and it immediately opposes Uranus. So we get this opposition every so often. That's not rare, that's not common, and it is a maximum amount of pushback, rising rebellious energy, propensity for acting out of alignment with our higher ideal, because we're so driven by that higher ideal that we just have these very knee-jerk reactions that at the time really seem like it's going to get us what we want, but we have to really harness that energy of knee-jerk pushback or rebellion, or else somebody else will. That's the nature of this opposition. We can make some mistakes in our haste. And there is a lot of haste. Mars and Uranus, in any aspect, increases the pace of things, increases the drive, the libido, and the speed at which we will pursue our autonomy and fight for our autonomy, our own survival, our place in the world, the breakthroughs that we need. So we have to balance what's good for the individual, what's good for us, because we may have some things that really do need to be pushed forward. That's Mars on the one end. But we have to balance that with what is good for the people around us, what is good in terms of our larger goal or aim, what is good when you look at the fact that tomorrow will come. Is the most impulsive force within us. It doesn't think before it acts. Doesn't isn't driven by conscience. It's just so spontaneous. So this has been a building, rebellious, spontaneous, electric, potentially dangerous energy. It depends on how it's directed. If it's not directed, if you're not acting, you're in that reactive place. That's where things go wrong, and we have the werewolf moment here. That, oh my God, um, I did something that was out of alignment with what I see was the greater good for myself or others in long term. See, we can act out on our infantile nature. And sometimes this opposition, if we use it correctly, if it doesn't use us, because we have the lizard brain possibly on maximum overdrive with this business. If we use it and it doesn't use us, it means we're not being run around by our nervous system. We're thinking. Then we can make leaps forward in terms of breakthroughs. Being an early adopter when it comes to new ways of furthering our own purpose, we get ahead of the game. The fire planets and Uranus combinations are interesting because all the fire planets, Mars, Sun, Jupiter, represent different stages and aspects of the ego. Mars is the id. It's the most basic, infantile stage of human development, that very primary stage of how we start to differentiate ourselves. And anytime we have the fire planets in aspect to Uranus, that is a primary thing, is differentiation. And our own agenda can be something that we see as worth fighting for or furthering or rebelling for. And that might be true. But see, with the hard aspects, often our agenda isn't really examined. It's more a construct or a product of what we've come from that we've decided we don't want or what we don't like. And so we don't realize that our rebellion isn't really creative. It's just this, we've decided to be the opposite of whatever it is that we don't like. And we can tell ourselves that that's how we are embracing our originality or our independence. And if you look at it closely, that thinking, it's just based on somebody or some usually dominant parent or a system that we don't like. And so we need to look at, how do I want to be? What is my authenticity? What is my expression? What are my choices? If all options are on the table and I don't have this idea of that is not what I'll ever be, and so I'll make myself in the other extreme image. If that isn't a factor, if I'm not limited by that, what does my authentic personal expression look like? That is how we bring our independent little piece of the show to the mix. We don't remake ourselves in the opposite or the shadow or as what we see as always justified, because it's the opposite of what was done to us or what we don't like. It's not a creative way or an original way or a karma-free way of thinking ourselves up. And so these are the kind of a werewolf moments, these epiphanies we can come to with this opposition between Mars and Uranus, that, hey, if I'm not reactive and I'm active, because I'm looking at what would I be with if I was making choices and not forced into corners to make critical decisions, what would that look like for me if I was making choices? If I had all options on the table and there were no limitations, what would I want and what would I be? And then we need to try to bring or work to bring, put our back into bringing that kind of ideal, that kind of life into reality for ourselves, instead of wasting our energy reacting to what it is that we don't want and creating more of that. Oppositions are funny. They're stories that we show up with, and others must prove it. They must prove that they are that way, or else we have to examine our reality. And so unconsciously, we tend to act in ways that cause the people around us, or have a hand in having the people around us see us and treat us and regard us in a certain way, because it reinforces our ideas about others, and then that tells us what we must be. So when we look at, oh, okay, well, I do create myself regardless of what others are, what they think of me. I am still responsible for what I am. They don't get to be responsible. That's actually a really humiliating moment for a lot of us when we do achieve that awareness that I am responsible for my way of being. I can't blame it on how somebody else has been. That's a hard thing. But that's an incredibly empowering moment because we really reclaim our nervous system and our energy, and we start being creative rather than rebellious for the sake of recreating ideas that actually don't lead us to the kind of breakthroughs and independence and really owning our own life, which is what Uranus is really asking us for. But in order to get to that Uranian breakthrough, you've got to go through Saturn. That's that previous stage. And so the two of them together, because all the signs pancake onto each other, it really represents having enough willingness to take responsibility for what you do and stop living a life of reflexive action, because that does really allow for a lot of natal stories and what we need to be true in order to continue to stay self-unaware, because then we can avoid that humiliating moment of understanding that, oh my god, I could have been different that whole time. I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to treat that person that way. And realizing how much we've been run around by our shadow side. That is a hard thing to see. So there's a big opportunity for that, seeing how, reflexive rebellion isn't always, proof of your self-awareness. Um, being reactive or pushing back, for the sake of, just asserting our will when we haven't looked at what that will is. Is it really what we want? Or is it itself in service to some kind of unexamined rebellion? Okay. Guys, have a good day. Think about what you do. Be careful if you're out there in crowds. There's a lot of charged up energy. Driving, transit. Um, if you're involved in anything that's risky today, just take extra precautions to make sure everything is as it should be, because we can rush. We can skip steps. And that's where we can run into accidents or have things happen that are more unpredictable. So slow down, look around, use um, mindfulness today. Before you stop to do something, really, stop and really think about what it is that is coming next. So we have those chances to gather ourselves throughout the day, today and tomorrow. And it's in that process of gathering, of reflecting, of being observant of ourself and others, that we can maintain that self-control. That's reflected in our outer environment.